So once again, hello everybody. Glad y'all made it today. So you know the drill. Let's start out with a short period of bell meditation. You've all done this enough times. So let me get you a couple of moments here, get into a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. Cool. All right. So today we're going to talk about morality and ethics. And we're going to, of course, connect it with the stuff that's going on all around us right now, because this is a time when morality and ethics play an unusually forward role, maybe, in how we're thinking and how we're acting. So first we start talking about Buddhism, right? Buddhist philosophy and practice. This is what guides practitioners to moral ideals right? The way of thinking morally, and the ethical actions. Okay, and we're speaking of things like compassion and selflessness. And these are done with the intention to have wholesome effects on the realities, both our internal realities and external realities of this contemporary world that we live in now. The Buddha, he didn't offer us dogmatic rules, rules that were meant to be adhered to without question, because he realized that due to the impermanence of all phenomena, and that all phenomena are causally conditioned by what goes on around them and in them, no two experiences or situations could be responded to in identical ways. So responses would need to arise from experiential wisdom so that they could be situationally effective. Situational application of Buddhist moral ideals and ethical actions begin with the knowledge and the acceptance that there are no personifications of evil. There's no one thing we can point to and say, that's evil. It may feel evil, may even look evil, but there is no personification of evil. So what there are unwholesome and wholesome decisions. That's what people make all during their lives. There are decisions that are made from the perspective of interconnectedness and compassion, but there are decisions that are made from a perspective of ignorance or misunderstanding of how the universe even works. One can have wholesome or unwholesome moral ideals and choose to take wholesome or unwholesome ethical actions. This is a freedom that we have as human beings. The Buddha realized that people must take action with the knowledge that each experience is unique, with a unique set of causal circumstances, so that they respond appropriately to each situation. Not only appropriately, but of course effectively to each situation. So again, this is a freedom we have as human beings, right? We get to make choices. And we should strive as much as we can to make better choices. We can't always make the best choice, but we can make better choices. Pragmatically, morality and ethics are more useful when we act the way we do because of the way the universe operates. Meaning, with the idea that every thought and action that we do has consequences. And those consequences lead to more thought and actions beyond us. Now, it of course lead to more thoughts and actions from us, but also those thoughts and actions happen outside of us, dependent on what we thought or did. The Buddha derived his moral teachings from the observation that in a causal world, behaving in ways that we call selfless leads to the best wide-ranging effects. And we could put other things there. We could say what we call loving kindness leads to the best wide-ranging effects, or compassion, or acceptance, right? We can put all kinds of different ideals in there, moral ideals. Pragmatic Buddhist morality, springs forth from a keen awareness of causality while responding to each situation in such a way that it promotes human that happiness, health, and harmony. So as a Buddhist, we choose to act motivated by wholesome moral character because in any experience, it is the appropriate way to walk the path. So we want to be motivated by a wholesome moral character. That's our core. That's our major intent. So then karma pops up. Karma works as a pragmatic moral principle when we experience it as human physics in action, rather than as a way of keeping score for our future lives. The most obvious example of this is in the changing of our own behaviors and habits. This is where we can see human physics in action more easily, is within ourselves, right? Change the way we think, changes the way we act, change the way we act, changes the way we think. That's karma in action. That's a wholesome consequence leading, hopefully, to another wholesome consequence. We know that by thinking more positively and by engaging in positive acts, we do change our personal character into a more positive one. We know that by acting as agents of positive change, that we become examples of the wholesome impact on both ourselves and on the society that is possible for us to do as one person. Human physics in action. It's karma. This skillful redescription of karma has pragmatic value in our Buddhist practice and holds firmly to the Buddhist philosophical ideal of a justification for ethical effort. Right? We put in ethical effort because our moral thinking tells us that wholesome will lead more likely to wholesome and unwholesome more likely to unwholesome. So every experience that we have presents us with an opportunity to hold on to or make a fundamental change in the ways we have acted in the past, whether it was wholesome or unwholesome. We are human, and we are empowered with the freedom, according to the situations we find ourselves in, to make better choices. Karma prompts us to look more deeply at our thoughts and actions in light of their consequences. So we make positive decisions and take positive actions with the experiential knowledge that positive encompassing effects are more likely to result. Now notice I didn't say will result, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes our best intentions go awry. And we just have to, that's another thing we just have to accept. But what karma can do for us in another pragmatic way is it can fulfill the role of a mnemonic device that reminds us of our responsibility to the moral ideal that we should have, that what we do matters. That's a moral ideal. What we do matters. Whatever way we choose to think or choose to act becomes part of our character. So we choose to think and act with things like compassion, generosity, morality, vitality, and acceptance. And we want to do these things all tempered by wisdom that we develop over our experiences with our practice and our experiences with our lives and our experiences with those people around us. Precept vows. You've probably heard of these. Precept vows, they have their own unique role in guiding a contemporary Buddhist moral thinking and ethical action. It's a role that both offers limits to how we should act while giving us the freedom to make mistakes and then renew our commitment. Unlike some traditional precepts, the 5 lay precepts in engaged Dharma are equally important for laity or monastic. And this is for reasons both social and personal as we are engaged in this quest for human excellence. In pragmatic Buddhism, this ideal is evident in each of the precepts because they each begin with, I undertake the training of, and then ... So it's a reminder that we are always refining our ability to develop wholesome moral ideals and to act ethically given the realities that we have to engage in. So think about developing wholesome moral ideals. You know, it's one thing to say, to have a lofty moral ideal such as, I will never kill, period. That's a great, lofty moral ideal. But then we have to think about how we can act ethically within that ideal. Right? These realities we engage in, the I will not kill period, there might have to be some adjustment to it. So there's an aspect of taking precepts excuse me, the precepts are vows to make conscious positive changes to our personal moral ideals, and then to engage in positive ethical actions when we're dealing with the world around us. So there's an aspect of taking precepts that isn't often mentioned as a bonus in the moral and ethical arenas. And that is, one who takes these vows is more likely to perceive when their actions are wrong, that they have made a mistake. So that makes them a really good tool. They are more likely to make a conscious effort to find the courage and commitment to do better the next time. They meaning the practitioner, you and I. I know I look to my precepts every day as I move through my day. Because just like karma can be a mnemonic device for us, so can those first 4 words, I undertake the training of. So it can lead us to a realization of the value of positively based thought and action, right? Experiential verification, which we've talked about so much here. And then there's taking refuge. Taking refuge, we've talked about this. It's a vow to turn to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha as, call them guides, if you will. And the 3 precepts, we do those before every meeting. Cease to do harm, do only good, and do good for others. These are other vows that guide us. And these vows have value as they begin to focus the body-mind on what are the wholesome goals of practicing the path. Precept vows illuminate, they brighten, they put a spotlight on the moral and ethical path that we are setting out to practice. A truly encompassing practice of ethics and morality requires a gradual transition from self-understanding, which is very important, to reaching outward with compassion and with empathy to others, and then to a better understanding of the potential suffering of others. The 3 pure precepts begin with that understanding. Motivation begins with self-interest, where the natural inclination to put oneself first becomes an intent to do what is the most wholesome thing for others. Practice matures into a modality of selflessness, right? Selflessness becomes your go-to mode of action. So it's directed toward others, but it remains within us as a self-directed selflessness at the same time. We know we're doing for others, right, in a selfless way, but we know in the back of our mind we do gain something from it. If nothing else, we gain a cementing of that moral ideal of selflessness, for example. If nothing else, we get that out of the practice. Our personal character continually improves, and the plight of others also improves, both through the same actions. Such a deal. 2 for 1. BOGO, if you will, buy one, get one free. So further maturation of practice and the recognition of self-motivation dissolves, and ethical moral actions evolve to encompassing actions solely done for the promotion of human flourishing, happiness, health, and harmony. But remember, human flourishing for us and human flourishing for others. The refinement of morality and ethics requires a process of going from self-interest to encompassing the ideal of a broader range of compassion and altruism, and applying those ideals to the realities of each unique situation that we find ourselves in. This is a complex commitment that leads to an ethical and moral self-development that integrates all the ideals of compassion, generosity, ethics, acceptance, meditation. It encompasses all these ethical and moral, wholesome self-development paths. Ethical action must take the causal process of the universe into account when considering how to act in a particular situation. So, moral principles and ethical actions, and this includes the ideal of virtue, these are defined by the outcomes that they have. You know, we look to determine what will produce and promote wholesome outcomes, right? We want like happiness and contentment, for example. And then we want to make them happen. In this way, we maximize the ideal social self through actions that are situationally appropriate. Leading a moral life is outcome-based. I do this, what happens? I think this, what happens? You know, at the end of each session, I do sharing the merit at the end of our daily sittings. You know, showing our gratitude and generosity, practicing the way of awareness which gives rise to benefits without limit. We vow to share the benefits of our practice, service, and gifts with all beings. Let us be reminded that a life of engagement and compassion is supremely important. Time swiftly passes by. Opportunity is lost. Each of us must strive to become aware of our connectedness to others and not squander the gift of realizing the wisdom of engaging the Dharma. Well, it's ethical behavior we're talking about here, right? That's the moral ideal, and then the ethical behavior that starts with us, right? Starts with the individual and then extends to others in our society. Everything is interdependent and connected, and all actions must be situationally determined with moral ideals as the foundation and as deep a level as we can get of mindfulness and awareness of each unique situation. Recognize and realize the governing principles of our world: impermanence, dependent origination, causal conditioning, and then determine the situationally appropriate actions to take. In this way, human beings can positively affect our world and those who inhabit it. And finally, engage those actions that have the best probability to affect the broadest range of happiness, health, and harmony. So, we got morals and we got ethics. Now I want to bring this a little into what's going on today. Pandemic and practice. Because right now, our moral ideals and our ethical actions can get a bit stretched, and they can get a little confusing with what's going on today. So I want to offer a way maybe to think about this during this time. When we talk about morals, right, what we're talking about is the preferred action that we would like to take no matter the situation. So here's the example. Morally, somebody might think this: nobody can own a gun. Period. Nobody can own a gun. That's a moral ideal, because we know if nobody had a gun, nobody would be getting shot. There wouldn't be any drive-bys. There wouldn't be any, spouse getting mad at the other spouse and shooting. There would be none of that because nobody would have guns. So that is a moral ideal. But the ethical action has to be situational. So we can't take people's guns away, and I'm talking here in America. There are other countries that do it, but we can't. So I have to talk about us. So ethics then becomes the action taken according to the situation with moral intent. So you always have that intent to get as close to your moral ideal as you can in the situation. But ethically, you may not be able to do that. So this idea ethically then becomes you can own a gun under particular circumstances, such as maybe you're in the military or you're a police officer or you've gone and you've had the training and you've got the license. So morally, again, nobody should have a gun. Ethically, they can have a gun, but they have to meet certain requirements. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about situational. We take our moral ideal And when we take action, we try to stay as close to that ideal as we can while doing what's the most effective thing we can do. This is not easy. I tried to think of some sort of a example as is happening right now. And let's try this. There's going to be what we would have termed a while back unimaginable levels of suffering that's going to start occurring during the next month. Meaning a lot of people are going to get ill. A lot of people are going to die around the world. And it sucks. And you're likely to feel this suffering on a really deep level, if you're not already. And you are likely going to want to help others in need. And that's a moral thought, right? That's our moral intent. That's our moral ideal, is we want to go out and we want to help everybody that we can. But you are likely struggling to keep yourself and your family healthy and safe while you're under some sort of quarantine. Right? You're really not supposed to leave the house. You're not supposed to go out and engage with others unless you absolutely have to. So you focus on keeping yourself, your family, safe and healthy during this time. So you have that moral ideal, and right now, the best we can do under most circumstances is to take care of ourselves and our family. So that's our ethical action right now. But remember what we said about karma, human physics in action. You taking care of yourself and your family, following the ethical rules that have been laid out that make sense, because some of them don't, and we have to accept that, but the ones that do follow them, yes, you will keep yourself and your family safe. That's a great ethical action based on that moral ideal. But also, you will be keeping other people more safe and more healthy. So it's a win-win situation. But is it going to tax our emotional context as we go through this? Are emotions going to arise? Are we going to want to do things maybe that we shouldn't do? And I'm not speaking of just good emotions, right? Like compassion, for example. I'm speaking of other emotions like loneliness. We may want to try to break out and do things maybe we know that we shouldn't. Resist it. Because this will pass. We just have to hold on long enough for it to pass. And I have to say, if the folks in the UK can make it through the Blitz and come out on the other side and be the people that they are today, the world can get through this pandemic and be better for it on the other side too. But it's up to us. We make that choice.